to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker and I are in full-blown summer mode. Justin just got back from Hawaii. I don't know. I didn't do anything cool, but welcome back from the Aloha State, Justin.
Why, thank you, sir. Glad to be back, and it's nice to come back to some World Junior hockey too. That was just quite a treat.
Yeah, and was it Kurt Johnson doing the old Michigan over there? That was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, Mr. Kent Johnson, a Michigan guy doing the Michigan.
Kent Johnson.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was. I mean, hey, to do that in that tournament, it's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely don't tell us about Hawaii, though. I don't feel like being really jealous, so we'll just kind of skip right over that. Yeah, if you were wondering, hey, how come these guys haven't done a show in a minute? That's the reason why. I tried to post that episode of our last episode that we did kind of halfway during the time when you were gone, so that, it wasn't so long. So I know, to our listeners, we're sorry. I know you missed us both. I don't know enough about hockey to talk by myself, so I'm afraid without
give
Justin.
Yourself a little more credit.
I really need Justin. No, it's not that. It's that you're just my motivation to get my ass in the chair to talk about hockey, not like with the record button on. I feel like I was talking with my brother. You know what? Oh, hold on. Before we jump into the top 10, we'll just do a little quick update on what's happening around the league, just because we can. We can always what I figured out. This is a stupid technical thing that if you're a listener and you're like, I don't care, talk about hockey. I figured out that what you can do is you can post these episodes and you can have stuff that is current, and then if you want to, if you like the rest of it, like these top 10 lists that are just, you could listen to them anytime, really. Like you could go back and listen to episodes we did 4 years ago, and a lot of those top 10 lists will still stand pretty darn, they'll hold up. And you can just go out and you can, remove a little portion of whatever it is that you did and just repost it and reuse it. So we'll do a little current events before we jump into our list, because I know we want to jump on Nazem Kadri because some breaking news today. So Justin, what have you read? What are you hearing? Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, so in the Twitterverse, apparently it's official. Nazem Kadri signs with the Calgary Flames, a 7x7 deal. And apparently Calgary is in the works with Montreal, and potentially I've already heard a potential third team in there, maybe for Montreal to move somebody to move Sean Monahan to the Canadiens to free up obviously some cap space so they can squeeze Kadri's contract in.
There we go. Yeah. My favorite headline of this whole thing was from SB Nation, and it said, Nazem Kadri to sign with Calgary Flames, who are not the Islanders.
I know
that got me, because everybody was saying that's what was going to happen. Like, they're just waiting, they're just, no, apparently not.
Right. I think maybe Kadri got tired of waiting, or maybe he got tired that Lou was going to make him shave his mustache and stuff off and wouldn't let him keep that. So he's like, you know what? No, fuck it. I'm out.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I did not think that he was going to get a max deal, a 7-year deal. So good on him for getting that. I guess some of the reason why it's the max deal at $7 million is probably so that it isn't like an 8.5 times 6 or something like that, or 9 times 6. Maybe he could have gotten that somewhere else, but you got to think they spread it out for that reason. So yeah, I mean, what a weird summer for the Calgary Flames. They go from having this, like, Goudreau leaving, you've got Matthew Tkachuk leaving. If you would have said, hey, at the trade deadline last year, hey, Tkachuk and Goudreau, they're out. They're both going to be out. That would have probably surprised me pretty. I would have been shocked. And now instead you've got Huberdeau and Kadri, and I mean Mackenzie Weegar to a certain extent. Certainly not as efficient as those other two guys in terms of scoring, but yeah, this is like somewhat of a new team, but all under the guise of it's still Daryl Sutter's team.
Right, and you kind of wonder too, like, how's Kadri gonna play ball with this, right? So now he's got to he's got to kind of play both ends of the ice, and I think he did pretty well in Colorado and showed a little bit of that in Toronto too. So I think this sandpaper type player is going to fit in kind of nice, at least for the first couple of years with Daryl Sutter's teams. And I'm interested to see more or less how these lineups end up playing out, because Jonathan Huberdeau coming in, and maybe with Tyler Toffoli there, do you want to stack your top line with maybe Lindholm, Huberdeau, and Toffoli, or maybe you want to break it up a little bit and put Kadri on that second line and put one of those wingers with him and see what kind of chemistry you get. So it'll be quite interesting.
Yeah, suddenly they've got more depth at center. Certainly, I mean that's a big part of I guess moving out a guy like Goodrow. Well, not moving out, but losing him. I know you replace him with Huberdeau, but I mean this is Kadri coming in. I think this is a good move for the Flames in the temporary, like in the immediate next 3 years, which I think is all you really care about. If you're a Flames fan, you got to be looking at this going, obviously, you're not worried about 5 years from now, right now. You just can't be. And you have to see if you can build upon what you have throughout the rest of your lineup, because they had a pretty darn good team. A lot of their players coming of age, I'll say, and you don't want to miss out on several other guys like Andrew Mangiapane, and like you signed Blake Coleman to a long deal. You brought in Tyler Toffoli. You've got Noah Hannafin in his prime, Rasmus Anderson, and you've got maybe another year or two left of a good Chris Tanev. There's a lot of pieces here, but this is like a 2 or 3 year window, I think, for the Flames. So, and you're talking a 32-year-old Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah.
So you got to be thinking about winning with him now, as opposed to obviously in 4 years when his contract's up, he'll be 36 years old and probably not an elite goaltender anymore.
Well, right. I mean, if you look at it 4 seasons from now, the 25-26 season, it's Kadri, Huberdeau, and Blake Coleman. That's their forward group. That's all they have signed. And Rasmus Anderson on the back end. And then 1 year left of Jacob Markstrom. So, of course, everybody's gone or potentially could be moved out. And
I believe it's Rasmus.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Rasmus.
I'm sorry. You're right.
There's a show on
Rasmus
Netflix.
Anderson.
It's called The Rain, and it was like it was like a Danish show or something like that. It was like the rain comes and it burns people alive kind of vibe. So you got to get out of the rain. It was like a sci-fi-ish kind of show. It was pretty cool. Anyways, but the kid who has this like special DNA in him to right the wrong of the whole earth, his name's Rasmus, but the sister says Rasmus. And that's all I can ever think of when I hear anyone named Rasmus. So,
all right, cool. Rasmus it is.
Rasmus Dahlin.
Right. So, well, yeah. I mean, so anyways,
bye.
Fantastic. I got to move past this. It's gonna. But bottom line is, you're right. There's a small window there, and again, some of these guys are pushing 30 years old too. Their core. Elias Lindholm is 27. Tyler Toffoli's 30. Like I said, these guys are getting up there in age, and so you don't want to have your core be 32 to 35 years old, basically, when you're trying to win a cup. That's just not going to work in this day and age unless you're Connor McDavid and Crosby. Right. Yeah, maybe they get Barry Trotz in at that point. Maybe he comes back to coach.
There you go. I mean, and the other thing for Kadri, I think he's, 7x7. Daryl Sutter is not going to be the coach of the Calgary Flames throughout the entire course of his deal. I mean, Daryl Sutter's 63. Is he going to be coaching in Calgary till he's 70? No, probably not. Especially the way he coaches. You expect that maybe he's got 1 or 2 more years left in Calgary before you start to. He sours on guys. That's just what happens with Daryl Sutter.
Yeah, or before he gets pushed upstairs to some like president of hockey.
Sure.
Then a new coach is in here. So
yeah, what he spent with the LA Kings, he was their coach for what? I guess like 7 years. I think he was their coach for. He got fired.
8 years.
No, sorry, he got fired in that 7th year.
Right.
6 seasons he was the coach there, and he was only the coach. It's funny, how long was he the coach in in Calgary before.
Well, he was coaching there for 3.5 years. Then he was the GM.
The GM, right? Yeah.
I mean, a total of 7 years there. So he stepped down from head coaching and was GM, and then went and took the head coaching job in LA. So.
Yeah, crazy to think. Like that was when he was 44 years old. That's crazy. Well, anyway, so the Calgary Flames, obviously they're preparing for right now, and I think they're going to be a pretty darn good team. It may take a minute for them to kind of find where all the pieces fit together, because they were a group that had been together for a long time. You think about Monahan, Gaudreau, Tkachuk. I mean, these guys were in it, and Monahan not so much in the last year. He was relegated to kind of the fourth line, but a lot of those guys had played integral roles in the lineup night in and night out, and now they're gone. So you wonder how it'll affect Lindholm. You wonder how's it going to affect Backlund, because now does Backlund get shoved so far down the lineup that now he's playing that third line role again? There's a few question marks, but I think that this is still a really good team. Yeah,
and besides being a good team, right? I think when you look at their division, right? So they have Edmonton they have to deal with. LA's getting a little bit better, but now Vegas, they don't have a starting goaltender. I mean, they're back to their number 3, number 4 goalies. So I think, if anything, their odds to win this division have pretty much, I don't know if you want to say gotten better, but I don't think they've gotten any worse than they were last year. You don't
think Laurent Brossoit is going to win the Vezina Trophy this year?
Dude, I'm picking Logan Thompson now. So.
Logan Thompson for all those big 20 games he played. Well, yeah. I mean, it's rare that you see a goalie play really well for 20 games and then not be good for the next 200.
Never happened before.
It's not like no one's ever won like a Vezina Trophy and then been horrible the rest of the time. Other than, Jim Carrey. Okay.
Jim
Carrey. He did win the Vezina in the lockout year, the 94-95.
Oh.
So, what a guy. I think he was out of the game within 3 years after winning the Vezina.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, should we jump into our list? I don't think we've even teased what we're going to talk about here with our list, but we are officially doing our top 10 grinders of all time. It's pretty much all we said to each other was like, yeah, let's do a list of top 10 grinders. And we could have put in a lot of, I'll say like ground rules as to who this could have been, because there is a very big definition. Like, what's a grinder? What does that mean? Does that mean someone who's a tough guy? Does it mean someone who's defensive? Does it mean someone who's just like, has a giant ass and is willing to stick it in front of people so that they can't get the puck? Like, what is a grinder? And I think that's the beautiful thing about this list, is that we might have completely different players on this list, because you might have had some different criteria, and I'm okay with that. I think it's fun. So share with me, how did you go about, what kind of criteria did you have in order to place a player on this list?
Yeah, first off, can I just say, if we're going to go off of biggest ass, let's just put Jaromir Jagr at the top.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Not on my list, okay. But he would have just missed had he would be on there if we were doing just off ass size.
Beautiful. So for me, grinders, right? So I look at basically a few different things, right? So first off, I took a look at, basically there's all these classifications as far as hockey players when you talk about your playmakers, your two-way guys. Really, for me, a grinder kind of falls somewhere in between a power forward who's just a big guy that has a lot of offensive upside and can score the puck, right? But maybe, uses his size more or less to be good offensively. And then I kind of put that in between, on the opposite end, an enforcer, a guy who's just out there just to beat the crap out of people, right? So for me, a grinder is someone who kind of falls in between, but is that guy who, also is willing to go to those hard areas, is willing to go in front of the net, is that guy who's really just, essentially going to grind it out the whole entire game and just make it very difficult for opposing teams, whether that's being physical, a little nasty, or just playing really good defensive hockey.
Okay. I'll say this for my list. I certainly went off of a player needed to have some serious talent to be on this list. I don't.
Okay.
I'll give you an I didn't even remotely consider someone like Kirk Maltby. He didn't come up in my I thought about it. I have down at the very bottom best grinding line of all time, the grind line. Draper, Maltby, McCarty, Kosher was a part of that for a minute. I mean, it was freaking called the grind lines. Of course, it's the best grind line or grinder line ever, but none of those players made the list for me because I just don't. There wasn't the offensive upside, which I think that you need. You know, you can be a quote unquote grinder. You can be someone who goes into the dirty areas. You go to the front of the net. You're willing to you'll take a beating. You can, cycle the puck in along the boards. You've got that. It's almost like someone who can cycle, as opposed to like, if you think, Ovechkin, definitely earlier in his career, maybe an argument could be made to say, yeah, he was kind of a grinder because he blew guys up, but I'd say that he was really more of just a really aggressive goal scorer, pure goal scorer with like some power forward abilities, and he was very excitable. But I wouldn't classify him as a grinder, or even really I wouldn't even put him as a power forward either. He just hit early in his career and really built a name for himself. But now he's not really hitting guys like that anymore, anyways. But I think there's got to be maybe some level of toughness, but toughness also it wasn't necessarily the sole factor or the deciding factor for me. It was, all right, who's got a ton of skill, who could quote unquote grind it out and use their body and push guys around, like get into position and is just in these places that are tough to get to, but always seem to find the puck in the right places, and they're a part of that cycle game. So that was how I determined who would get on my list. So my list does not have a bunch of. Now we could have said best third line players of all time. That would have been a different list completely over here's the best grinders of all time. So
yes, absolutely. Jordan Stahl would have been number one on my list and didn't even make this one. So
yeah, you would. I mean, then you would have been. It would have been very reasonable to say, well, like Chris Draper, one of the best third line centers ever, for sure.
Right.
But yeah, this is more or less like who's someone that's really good that scored goals or made plays or like they produced offense for their team. Was the way that I did my list.
That's fair. Now I will say now if I did have two guys, maybe I had a toss up between who would go like say in instance number 7 or number 6. I pretty much was like, okay, well, the deciding factor is who's better offensively. So they got the nod.
That's fair. So. That's fair. Yeah, because you're kind of thinking like, who do I want on my team, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, I want these guys on my team. Maybe in the future we'll do like, who's the best fourth line players of all time? That would be an interesting list to do. So, or bottom 6 or something like that. But
absolutely.
Okay, let's dive in. Give me your just missed players.
Okay, I've got 3 guys on the just missed, and 2 of them are former Toronto Maple Leafs, so you might know these names.
Let's hear them.
Okay, so number 1 on my just missed is Scott Hartnell.
Scotty Hartnell, yeah.
Yeah, old Columbus Blue Jacket Flyer. I mean, this guy was slow as balls, but man, did he grind it out every single game and produce because of it, right? I mean, those are the type of guys you want, right? You don't have the speed, which in today's NHL, obviously he just wouldn't cut it. I don't think he would be quick enough. He'd be a fourth line guy and eventually, fizzle out. But ultimately, he just had a good hockey IQ and really knew how to work in those hard areas. Also on my list, a current player, Zach Hyman, who to me, just again, he's one of those guys that goes and works hard in those corners. He's in front of the net. He goes in all the hard places that Connor McDavid, that Austin Matthews, they just didn't go at the time, and he, was rewarded because of it. And then last but not least, Darcy Tucker.
Darcy, dude, he is one of my favorite players ever. Yeah, I love Darcy.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys you love to hate, but also if he's on your team, you love him.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely love Darcy Tucker. What a guy. My just missed 2 Toronto Maple Leafs actually on my just missed. None of the ones that you listed. I have Dougie Gilmour and Wendell Clark on my just miss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
have a feeling.
You have a feeling.
I have a feeling based upon those 2 players on our list are going to be vastly different.
Okay. Good. Yeah, Doug Gilmour, fantastic player. Of course, he won the Selke in like 1993, 94, I think it was that year. One of the either 93 or 94 he won it. And Wendell Clark was just a little bulldog. Did everything right. But yeah, those 2 guys just missed my list. So yeah, I mean, that obviously gives you an idea of like what kind of talent might be on my list. So
okay, that's beautiful. Yeah, 92-93 by the way. So.
Okay, yeah, 92-93. Yeah, that was the year that everybody had like 150 points or like tons of 100-point guys and whatnot, right?
Right.
Okay, well let's go with your number 10. Who do you got?
All right, I've got Terry O'Reilly from the Boston Bruins.
Nice choice.
Yes, I mean there's a reason Phil Esposito dubbed this guy the Taz because he was a Tasmanian devil, reckless, hard driving play. I look on Wikipedia and there's a nice little picture of him charging the stands at Madison Square Garden in '79. It's just fantastic. I mean, this guy was a bruiser, and again, just he was a fan favorite in Boston, and unfortunately, he got to wear the C the last couple of years of his career. That's how much he was beloved there. Even though he produced, midway through his career, he put up 90 points one season in '77, but really wasn't a high scoring guy in the late '70s, early '80s, like it started to trend. And but again, his career was cut short, only 891 games, and that just and a little over 2,000 penalty minutes. I mean, that just really proves how hard this guy played every single night, and just made it tough for teams to play against him.
All right, I love it. My number 10, I feel like I hesitated to put him on here. I thought maybe just no. I'm gonna upset Justin right away with my number 10. Oh, by the way, do you have any? Oh no, I guess I was gonna say, do you have any goalies on this list? Did you throw Ron Hextall on the list or?
No goalies.
No, okay, yeah,
no.
Neither did I. He'd be the only one that I could think of that you could even remotely come close to dropping him on a list like this. But yeah, no, I didn't have Ron Hextall. My number 10 is a man who has won 4 Stanley Cups. He won a Conn Smythe Trophy, and had some big years for teams that won the cup, and that was that's kind of his contributing factor, and he was not unwilling to do things that bothered people, which like somewhat because he wasn't an enforcer, so I'm not putting him in the enforcer track, but that is Claude Lemieux.
I had a feeling. I thought about putting him in my list.
Yeah, I mean the years that he won the Stanley Cup, his rookie season. I'm not sure if it was his rookie season or if it was just the first season he made the playoffs. It wasn't his rookie season; it was like his 3rd year. He had 16 points in 20 games in the playoffs, 10 goals, and the guy in 20 games he had 68 penalty minutes in the playoffs. He had over 50 penalty minutes 3 different years in the playoffs. But yeah, won a cup with New Jersey, gets traded to the Avalanche, wins a cup there, and then he wins another cup with New Jersey later on in his career. I know his 4th Stanley Cup, you might go, well, that was later in his career. He was kind of bouncing around. He actually had 10 points in 23 games that year, in the playoffs for the New Jersey Devils. A 38-point year in 70 games. But, man, at 33 years old for the Avs in, 99, he was playing 21 minutes a game. He was somebody who was relied upon. He had boatloads of penalty minutes. He was always willing to defend his teammates. And that, in order for a guy from that era, from, not the current era or, post 2005 lockout kind of era, I think you've got to be somebody who is willing to stick up for your teammates. Terry O'Reilly fits that bill, and so does Claude Lemieux. And of course, Claude Lemieux also took a beating from some people. So Darren McCarty, not on my list, but sort of in spirit on my list because Claude Lemieux. Anytime Claude Lemieux appears somewhere, McCarty is just close behind, right? Okay, let's go to number 9.
Okay, number 9, I have Dave Tiger Williams.
All right, yeah, you're going. Your list is going to be much different than mine. You're going for the monsters, the pure monsters.
I mean, some of these guys, yes, absolutely. When you get a little higher on my list, you'll see a little bit more finesse, I guess. I mean, there's a reason he has close to 4,000 penalty minutes.
Unreal.
Leads the NHL all time in that category. I mean, he just he was a wrecking ball out there, and just difficult to play against, no doubt. But again, he just was one of those guys again that was just so hard to play against, and he actually finished 14th in Hart Trophy voting in 80-81. So he had a little offense to his game.
There you go.
But man, he had so many seasons. I want to say 4 or 5, no 6. I'm sorry, counting it up here of 300 plus penalty minutes.
Wow, yeah, that's.
I don't even know what that equates to per game, but my God, actually, I want to do the math now, just because I'm curious.
300 penalty minutes. You're almost at 4 minutes of penalties a game.
Yep, 4.13 minutes a game.
Which it is interesting because he is the all-time leader in penalty minutes. Yet his best season in terms of how it matches up with other people's all-time most penalty minutes is only 18th all-time, and that was 86-87 with the LA Kings. And then he's got 25th with the Leafs in 77-78, and then 32nd, 34th, 38th. Like, he's got a lot in the top 50, but the most all-time is Dave Schultz for the Philadelphia Flyers. The guy had 472 penalty minutes.
Woo.
Which is a lot of them were fights, I got to imagine, because that is a
lot of game misconducts.
Yeah, that's a lot of the most penalties taken in 1 year in 69 games. Steve Durbano for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Kansas City Scouts in 75-76 took 124 penalties, equating to 370 penalty minutes, and that is the most all time. Second most is your boy Bob Probert with 123 penalties taken in a year.
Oh, I love it.
So Steve.
By the way, Bob Probert didn't even make the list.
Yeah. Rip. Steve Durbano. He had 200. He played 220 games, had 1,127 penalty minutes, and had 13 goals. He must have been. He was a defenseman. Okay, at least he was a defenseman, and he was a first-round pick for the '71 New York Rangers.
Wow!
There you go. Somebody that I guarantee you, no one listening to this. If you are listening to this podcast and you're like, oh yeah, Durbano, yeah, he's a good player. Tweet at us at OTHockey.com because I want to know who remembers, especially because he played for the '70s Kansas City Scouts, Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah, Dave Tiger Williams, a good player to have on this list. I'm going in a whole different direction because
I love it.
My number 9 is a guy who was also on our last show, our list of the top 10 players who have not won a Stanley Cup or didn't win a Stanley Cup. I have Jarome Iginla as my number 9 ninth best grinder of all time. I mean, Iginla was willing to fight. He'd get into the dirty areas. Boy, could he shoot, but he was willing to get to the net and make things happen. And he was tough and mixed it up in the corners. And and has all the trophies to boot, right? Like two Rockets. He won the Art Ross. He got the Pearson, four All-Star appearances, and of course he's also in the Hall of Fame. So, you know what? I noticed something just to throw this out there. I'm pretty sure that this wasn't. I had never seen this before. Maybe I just didn't realize it. But has the all rookie team been in the awards section of Hockey References like, in Hockey Reference, you can look at a player's stats, and on the far right side, you've got all the awards, and it tells you where they were at in the voting, right?
Yeah.
Have you noticed the AR, which is the NHL All Rookie Team, being in there? Because I just noticed it this week.
Really?
Of it being in there, yeah. Am I going crazy? It's been in there the whole time?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, now I'm questioning myself, but I feel like it's been there.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, anyways, he was on the NHL All-Rookie Team in 1996-97 for Calgary.
Okay.
But, yeah, so anyways, Jerome Ginla, my number 9. Okay, let's keep her moving, and we'll go to number 8.
Yeah, I'll make number 8 pretty quick here. Only guy with more than 1,000 points and 3,000 penalty minutes in the NHL, that is Dale Hunter.
Dale, yeah.
Clearly a reason why he's got 3,000 penalty minutes. I mean, he just made it tough to play against, whether he was, being physical out there or just really, he was the type of player, at least in my opinion, that just really drove hard all the time and just really played a gritty style of game. But it's funny because according to, I was reading on Wikipedia, I hadn't even really known this about him, but according to former Quebec Nordiques coach Mike Bergeron, even though Hunter was nicknamed the Nuisance, he was known to be humble in the dressing room and a gentleman close to the players, and the players referred to him as the perfect player. So,
wow,
little different in the dressing room, I guess. So,
yeah, he wasn't like that as a coach, I don't think.
No,
I think something happened to him. Yeah, that's a good pick there. My number 8 is Rod Brind'Amour.
Oh,
just throwing that out there right away. Won a cup, 2 Selkies, and those Selkies were back to back in 05-06 and 06-07 for the Carolina Hurricanes. And really, like, consistently one of the players who's kind of thought of in the Selke voting. One of those years, 10th in Hart Trophy voting. The thing that always caught my attention with Brind'Amour, I know he's, he kind of maybe more fits that like traditional grinder role. Like, he could move up and down the lineup. He could be on your first line. And he put up 97 points in 93-94 with the Philadelphia Flyers. Like, with the Flyers, he was putting up big points. He had a 86, 97, 87, 74, 75, like big point seasons. And not a massive goal scorer, but definitely he had 30 goal scorers, or 30 goals 5 seasons in his career. So, putting up goals, and but always responsible defensively, willing to fight, digging in the corners, and holy smokes, did this guy play a lot. In 05-06, when he won his first Selke as a 35-year-old, he put up 70 points. He averaged in 78 games 24 minutes and 18 seconds a game. That's unreal.
Ooh.
For a centerman, he was averaging over 24 minutes a game. There's
wow.
really good defensemen in the NHL that barely scratch that.
Right. I was going to say, there's a reason Connor McDavid doesn't even play that amount of minutes.
Yeah. Okay. And the next year he played over 23 minutes a game. That's a tremendous amount of games. Especially, you could go, all right, well, yeah, sure, a 23-year-old maybe playing a lot of minutes, whatever. The guy was 35 and 36 when he's doing that. So, a fantastic career, and somebody who, when you think of Rod Brind'Amour, you think of him with that freaking cut on his nose. Like, right. He has like a permanent cut on his nose. Like, it's broken always. It is continually, like, he definitely can't breathe out of that nose at all. He's a mouth breather.
A mouth breather.
But no, it's Rod Brind'Amour. I mean, the other cool thing about him is that he kind of has brought that same attitude into coaching, and I can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Guys love to play for him. They loved to play with him. They love to play for him, and he pushes guys to be their best. And I think that that's also a part of being someone in this role, is that you're kind of that guy that you would look at and go, that's probably someone in the locker room who's like kicking people's asses a little bit, right? Like it's kind of a part of it. And so I didn't really realize or think about that while building this list, but now that I look at it, a lot of the personalities that will fill the rest of my list too are that way. So just an interesting thought there. You want to go to number 7?
Yeah. I got a guy, my first defenseman on this list, which I had a really hard time putting a
defenseman on my list.
I mean, technically, you don't really consider defenseman grinders that often, right? I mean, it's typically not there.
But you don't usually want to see a defenseman behind the net getting pinned up and holding the puck. So it's not a knock on it. Maybe we can do like, I don't know, best defensive defenseman or like tough defenseman or something.
Yeah, why not?
Or like the defenseman that should actually win the Norris Trophy because they're the best defenseman, not because they are the run and gun guys.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but when I saw this little stat here, I thought, you know what? I got to put this guy on the list. He actually scored the 1991 Stanley Cup winning goal.
Oh wait, let me see if I can guess who it is. In what year?
Yes, please. 91.
Okay, 91
with Pittsburgh Penguins.
All right, yep. 91 Pittsburgh Penguins. Oh boy, are we looking at like? No, it's not Kevin Hatcher. Is it Kevin Hatcher? No, Ulf Samuelsson.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Ulf Samuelsson.
Ulf Samuelsson.
Nice.
Yeah, nice guess.
Did he score the Stanley Cup winning goal for the Penguins?
He did, which it's crazy because I mean, really, you look in his career, he actually did score. I mean, 57 goals. So he put up a couple, right?
He was a decent offensive player. I mean, not crazy, but yeah, that's I have a collection of Stanley Cup winning goal scorers, and I don't think I have an Ulf Samuelsson.
Well, there's another one for you, but I mean, there's a reason. Yeah. I mean, he was at one point the most hated guy in hockey. He actually had he had a nickname that I found out reading into him a little bit more. Nickname RoboCop because of the suit of armor, the padding he wore underneath his jersey. It was just fantastic. But I mean, this guy was just a heavy hitter, an agitator. Again, when you're the most hated guy in hockey, right? You're obviously tough to play against. Kind of remind me a little bit of like Sean Avery, right? Guys just hated him, but he was tough to play against. So he makes my list.
I like it. My number 7 is someone who is maybe best known for crying as he watched Jonathan Toews lift the cup.
Oh,
that's Jeremy Roenick, or he's best known for being a pervert. I'm not sure which one. I'm just kidding. That's fine. I mean, he was an idiot. But anyways, is he working anywhere now or no? Is he anywhere?
I don't think so.
No, he never got hired back. He actually was pretty good. I liked listening to him when he was, I like him better
than Mickey Redmond, that's for sure.
Well, yeah. That was in 2020. That was a while ago. All he had to do was just say like, yeah, Catherine Tappan's really hot. And it would have been like, you shouldn't have said that, but like, it would have been okay. But instead he had to go and basically say that he wished that he could sleep with her. Like, bad idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jeremy Roenick, he's my number 7. When you look at what he did in his career, the guy was just put up tons of penalty minutes, was willing to fight, but could skate like the wind. He kind of a different type of grinder where for his time he could really skate. He had those white skates and whatnot, and just feel like he was kind of that like consummate teammate kind of guy. And I know that he did get himself in trouble, but it's like also something about those grinders, you want like, it has a certain swagger to him. I know that he didn't always make friends with people, but I think it was during the lockout. I think, was it him? He said he told fans to kiss his ass and said that they were jealous of him, like, because it was something like, remember during that lockout, people were talking about how like, oh, these NHL players, they're all spoiled, they're making all these millions of dollars and they don't want to play hockey because they want more money. And he told them to kiss his ass. I think, yeah, here it is. Yeah, he told them to kiss his ass. But anyways, Yeah, Jeremy Roenick, number 7. I'll give you my number 6 too, because I think you'll appreciate this one. Ties to the Leafs, ties to the Wings. That is monster goal scorer Brendan Shanahan. Just a pure beauty of a player. Beat the living tar out of people. Won 3 Stanley Cups. He's in the Hall of Fame. 656 goals. Crazy that he never won any awards, but he really was like maybe one of those textbook definitions of a grinder. Like, just could blow people up, and at the same time could score goals like very few players in the league could. But he scored a lot of those from in tight. So
okay, nice. I like it.
Who's your number 6?
All right, at number 6, I have another defenseman in my last one on this list. That is Eddie Shore.
Yeah, I thought about putting Shore on my list, and he kind of, I know about him, but it was just more fun to put the players that I know about on here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, reading into this guy again, we know he's got the accolades, right? I mean, as a defenseman, 4 Hart trophies. He's third behind, Gretzky and Gordie Howe as far as Hart trophies are concerned. So there's the production as far as that's concerned. Now, what kind of again, I just started reading more about how tough this guy was actually to play against. I mean, look, his first practice after he got traded from Montreal to Boston, he was, being a pest in front of the net, being hard to play against. And a couple players went after each other. They, rushed Shore, guys collided, and next thing you know, half of his ears ripped off, and he literally watched the doctor just sew it back on like no big deal. While the guy he hit was out cold and out of commission for a week. So there was that.
I love it.
Yeah, and then of course, like you said, being difficult to play against. Obviously we know he ended Ace Bailey's career. I guess somebody upended. I think it was King Clancy who upended Shore with a hard check. He was a little dazed and confused, thinking he was going to go hit Clancy, and ended up hitting Bailey instead. Yeah. But again, all that said, it was just this was a guy who just played with that kind of tenacity every single game and made it difficult for guys to play against him. And obviously it's sad he ended someone's career, but at the same time, I mean, there's a reason he had 4 Hart trophies, right? He was just that good and difficult to play against. Yeah,
4 Hart trophies, was second in Hart Trophy voting once, and third 2 times, fifth once. So every year he was playing, he was up for the Hart. And the years he won the Hart, he was 30, 32, 33, 35.
Right.
A different time. I mean, he didn't start his playing career till he was 24. Mostly because there wasn't much to, it was 1926, but definitely a different time. But I like him being on that list. Who's your number 5?
All right, number 5. I go a little bit later in the years here, all the way up to the 80s and 90s. I've got Guy Carbonneau, captain for the Montreal Canadiens, 3-time Stanley Cup winner. He's got 3 Selkies to play against. Finished twice in voting, 2 other times, and third. And then, of course, his last year, actually at age 39, finished 9th in Selke voting with the Dallas Stars. I mean, this guy, it was just the ideal number 3, number 2 center you wanted on your team, a guy that went up against every top line every single night. And there's a reason. I mean, look, the guy never put up more than 50, he put up 57 points once, 56 a couple times. But, I mean, he never produced big numbers, but there's a reason he captained Montreal to a Stanley Cup, and was just so beloved by every place he played at. Montreal, Dallas, St. Louis, you name it. Teams, fans loved him because he was that grinder. He was a fan favorite, a guy who literally would go up against everybody's best players and most of the time beat them.
Shut him down. Yep, absolutely. I thought about putting him on that list. I've got a different Montreal Canadiens player at my number 4, so I didn't want to put too many players on the same team. I don't think I have any players that, at least Shanahan and Lemieux, they both did play in the Devils, but I don't. People probably aren't like, where did Brendan Shanahan play? He played in so many places that you can't really pin down one, and a lot of people will remember what he did in Detroit, especially the people that I know because we live in Detroit. But yeah, my number 5 is probably many consider him the greatest power forward of all time, and maybe that player that, thanks to your number 7, Ulf Samuelsson, will always wonder what might have been had he not gotten hurt and was able to, continue his career fully healthy, and that is Cam Neely.
Nice.
Cam Neely tons of penalty minutes because the guy was fighting. You always know that someone's fighting when they have even number, or the number of their penalty minutes is a 5. That means they fought. They have to, right? But yeah, was always willing to throw his body around, and unfortunately gets destroyed by Ulf Samuelsson. And he goes from a 92 and a 91 point season in only 69 games. And then pretty much he had some good years, but just couldn't play anymore. In 49 games in 93-94, he had 74 points and 50 goals. So I think he's the last player to have 50 and 50, and he had 50 and 49. So Cam Neely, my number 5.
Beautiful.
Who do you have in number 4?
All right, I've got a trio at number 4, and I think you can probably guess where I'm going with this.
You did one of these things, huh?
These things. It's the grind line. Darren McCarty, Chris Draper, and Kurt Maltby.
Separate garbage players. All together? Fantastic. No, not garbage.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Chris Draper was, again, your ideal third-line center, and you couldn't have asked for a better one, having, won all those cups with Detroit. And, Kurt Maltby and Darren McCarty, they would, go in all the dirty areas. They would play rough. They brought speed to the game. And, of course, every once in a while, Darren McCarty seemed to chip in with just a highlight reel goal. I don't know how he did it. The way he played most nights. You wonder, okay, well, this guy just literally is just a grinder to agitate people, right? Kind of a little Claude Lemieux without the poor man's Claude Lemieux, as I like to think about it.
Sure.
But then he would get stuck on a line change with Steve Yzerman and come up with some highlight reel goal, or the Stanley Cup winning goal against Philly. You watched it. I'm like, and it's funny. I don't know if you've seen the Unrivaled series on ESPN they did between the Avs and Red Wings rivalry. And if you haven't, check it out. It's phenomenal. But they basically mentioned that McCarty, everybody at the bench was yelling at McCarty to dump it in because it's Darren freaking McCarty. You're going to go one-on-one against the defenseman and, Philly's goalie at the other end. Hextall, you're not going to score. Like, no way.
Wasn't it was Desjardins the defenseman that he danced around?
I think so. Yeah, it was a notable defenseman.
Yeah.
There's no chance McCarty's going to get anything going off that. He might get a simple shot on goal, but it's not going to do anything. And what does he do?
Mario!
Dekes everybody out. I'm like, oh my God. But for me, just watching this line play for so many years, I just couldn't keep them off the list.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Draper and Maltby did play on Team Canada in 2006 in Torino, and that's probably the worst Olympic team that Canada sent. As far as NHL players being a part of it, that was the worst finish. They tried it. It was weird. They tried to build this team of we don't want to just bring a lot of big goal scorers. We want to bring guys who can shut people down. So they left some notable players off that team. I don't think Crosby was on that team.
I'm going to go take a peek now because I'm kind of curious.
I feel like he wasn't. Or there was some notable guys weren't on that team. Anyway, and that was on the Olympic ice. So, different game. Tell me if Crosby was on that 06 Torino team.
Let's see. They had Niedermeyer and Jovanovski. They got injured, so they got replaced. And let's see. I don't see any notes in Wikipedia here, but
had RoboCop and Ulf Samuelsson, and then we have JovoCop in Ed Jovanovski.
Jovo. Yeah, no Crosby on this roster here. So.
See, what a brutal team. How dumb.
And the reserves. Crosby wasn't even on the reserves. It was Jason Spezza and Eric Stahl.
Which, the fact that Spezza at that point was on the reserves, that's he's 6 years in the league, and he was on the reserves. And you had Draper playing. No offense. It's not an offense to Draper. It's just, you had Jason Spezza. The next year, Spezza takes his team almost single-handedly to the Stanley Cup Finals. Oh, that's...
Yeah. And in 06, Crosby's coming off a 102-point season.
Yes.
And you're like, it's cool. We're good.
Yeah, he's just too young.
Granted, yes, he was 18.
Who cares?
I get it. Yeah, exactly. Who cares, right? That's the thing. He's labeled the next one, right? First overall, the next one. And the guy puts up 100 points, and you're like, nah, he's not good enough for international play.
Yeah, and let's bring the slow guys. Let me get, was LeCavalier on that team?
Oh, crap, I just closed out the window.
Damn it.
Make me do it. But no, he was actually. I did see his name in there.
He was,
and
okay.
so was Martin St. Louis. So
yeah, see, there, and the Cavalier, yeah. I mean, they were good. That was, those two
they're
guys
just
were,
coming
but he
off
was a
the
little
Stanley
slow.
Cup win,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, true. Okay, my number 4, I basically have the other Guy Carbonneau, the OG Guy Carbonneau, and that's Bob Gainey. Bob Gainey, 5-time Cup winner, 4-time Selke winner, along with the 78-79 or the 79 Conn Smythe Trophy winner. They literally made this trophy because Bob Gainey was so good at what he did that they made this trophy because they needed to like award him for something. Like, he is the reason they made this trophy. He wins the first 4 of this trophy's existence and comes in second place in 81-82 in the year that he ended up losing it for the first time, and he loses it to Steve Casper of the Boston Bruins, a 20-year-old who anyways, he was a -18 and he won the Selke.
Yeah, he must have been on a
So
bad team. But you know what's
weird.
crazy to me, though, is Bob Gainey won this award when he was the first one when he was 24. So if the NHL is going to create an award after you, and it's very well known, it's not like, people are just, this is an urban legend or something.
Yeah.
Because he won the first one. I mean, clearly when you're between the ages of 20 and 23 in the NHL in the 70s on Montreal, and you're that good defensively, I mean, he just came out. He must have come out of the gate.
I mean, he probably would, like, if that trophy had existed before that, he probably would have had at least 3 more before that.
Maybe. At least.
But, his best season, points-wise, 47 points in 78 games. That was his best. And he didn't... Yeah, now that was the last year he won the Selke for Montreal. So definitely not... And he had 23 goals that year, so that was his best offensive year. That was back when they awarded the Selke in, I think, a much more pure way. Like, it was like, well... we're going to give it to somebody who is actually a defensive forward,
right?
Not just a forward who's good at defense. It's so hard too, because now we have so many more metrics to measure by, and I actually think that it's a better way to measure it. Like Bergeron, Barkov, these guys that are winning this award, I think it's a better way to measure it because there is something to be said about, well, when you're putting up points, it means that the other team doesn't have the puck. But there also needs to be some kind of like, well, when the other team does have the puck, how often do you take it away? Like Datsuk winning the Selke, that was one of the big selling points for why Datsuk should win it, because they're like, well, every time somebody gets the puck, he takes it away. and that is like pure measure of defending, right? Like, I took the puck away from you. That's probably the best stat we have as far as like just like a traditional stat to say, yeah, that guy stole the puck a lot of times and then didn't give it away very many times. That would be the other measurement. But anyways, Bob Gainey, number 4, basically made the defensive forward trophy and did everything right, won tons of cups, and for all his lack of points, the year he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, 16 points in 16 games. So he went a point per game. It was like the best stretch of his career. He had no other playoffs where he had that kind of point production. No other year where he was, where he was barely at 0.5 points a game. He was like 0.6 points a game kind of thing. And then he all of a sudden goes off and is a point per game in those playoffs. So well deserved. All right, let's get into our top 3.
Beautiful. All right. Well, for number 3, you just talked about him, Bob Gainey.
Okay, there we go.
So no need to elaborate anymore. Well said.
Okay. All right. So your Gainey number 3 for you. My number 3 is Bobby Clarke for the Philadelphia Flyers. Tough to find a player has more awards and was looked upon as the best player in the league for several years, who is a tougher player than Bobby Clarke.
The smile. That's all you got to look at.
The smile. Yep. He won 2 cups, a Masterton, 3 Hearts, a Pearson, a Selke. Later in his career, in 1983, he wins as a 33-year-old, his second to last year, and then also on 4 NHL All-Star teams. So a fantastic career, but somebody who was just, I mean, he played the pure grinder kind of way, and he was on a team that was like just had all the grinders. So and had what Dave Schultz, we were just talking about him earlier, with the most penalty minutes ever in a season. So helps to have those guys to to protect you too.
Sure does. I love it.
Okay, let's hear your number 2. Who do you have?
All right, for number 2, I've got Robert Blake Theodore Lindsay, better known as Ted Lindsay to the amateurs out there.
You're such a dick. I was like, Rob Blake? I mean,
I didn't tell you I had a third defenseman on this
Yeah,
list.
right, yeah. Okay, yeah. Ted Lindsay, tell us why you dropped him on there. I don't disagree.
I mean, look,
he's a great player. But.
No, he was so tough to play against. He went out there and, I mean, he grinded every single shift. I mean, yes, we know about what he did post-career with the Players Union and the award that he has now. But there's a reason I called him Terrible Ted, right? And the NHL actually developed penalties for elbowing and kneeing to discourage that type of hitting just because of what Ted Lindsay was doing out there. I mean, he's the same reason Bob Gainey, has the Selke. Ted Lindsay created the elbowing and kneeing penalties just because that's how rough he played against the other teams. And he wasn't necessarily always fighting, but he was grinding every single shift, which is fantastic. And I mean, look, he won it's funny, the year he won the Hart or the Ross Trophy, he finished 7th in Hart Trophy voting. Yeah. And I went back and took a peek at it. I'm like, okay, we had Chuck Rayner win the Hart that year as a goaltender for the New York Rangers,
who was 28. More losses than wins. Yeah,
more losses than wins. And then I look and I'm like, okay, we've got Toronto, Sid Abel, and clearly I'm looking at the ages. I'm like, okay, most of these guys are veterans who've been in the league for a few years. I'm like, there was probably a little biasy towards the young guy getting it, and just like, okay, we're gonna give the sympathy vote here, and but still, I mean, he managed to put up 78 points, more than anybody else. The number 2 guy on this list for the Hart Trophy that year was Ted Kennedy, who only had 44 points. I mean, he almost doubled this guy, but managed to finish in 7th. I don't understand it. So
crazy.
I would love to know a little bit more about why that voting went the way it did. But regardless, I mean, this guy, Ted Lindsay, was just a grinder every single night. He could match up against the team's best players. He could play, great offensive hockey, and he always, finished the season with, 100 plus penalty minutes. I mean, in 1,000 games, he managed to finish with 1,800 penalty minutes. So you knew he was out there playing a little rough every single night, which I just love for a grinder.
Love it. My number 2 was also a Red Wing, and 4-time Cup winner. 21-time All-Star, 6-time Ross, 6-time Hart. Gotta give the nod to Gordie Howe as the second best grinder of all time.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, see, for me, I would probably put him more or less like similar to Jerome McGinley. I kind of feel like he falls more or less in the power forward, but again, that's a different era, so that they didn't have power forwards back then. But
I suppose. I mean, he's 6 foot 205. I mean, he was a bigger guy for the time. He just wasn't. He didn't stand down from anybody. I'm trying to remember who it was that. There's a story of like him lining up for a face-off and how looks at him and he says, "Hey, like, welcome to congratulations on making the NHL. Blah blah blah. Like, hope you have a great game." And he was so nice to me, and then we lined up for the face-off, and he like elbows him in the face and knocks him down, and wins the face-off, and just looks back to Adam and says, "Welcome to the NHL, kid." Like, unbelievable stuff that these guys got away with. Then it's so funny.
It's great because like I often wondered, like, why was Gordie Howe again, when you look at his size and his stature, I'm like, how is Gordie Howe that much, so physically dominant with all these other cast of characters in the NHL? I'm trying to, I'm looking into this, and I read that, of course, back in that day, NHL players didn't get these $1 million salaries or a ton of money, right?
Sure.
A lot of these guys had to go work summer jobs, and so there wasn't the training regiment that, a lot of players today have during the summer months. And so Gordie Howe's summer job was working at a construction company lifting bags of cement. So this guy was picking up 50 pounds every other minute. And so, of course, he's just going to just be a lean, just monster of a guy. So, of course, yeah. That's great.
Weird time to think about that. It's so funny. How far we've come. Who's your number one?
Oh, you've already mentioned him, and I don't think you'll have any disagreement with this, but Bobby Clarke.
Okay, Bobby Clarke. I like it.
Yes. For me, I don't think if you had to talk about like a complete package of a player, it's kind of hard to argue against a guy like this. Obviously we know about the accolades with the cups and everything else he did, but Bobby Clarke pretty much just did it all. As far as hockey players go, he was great defensively, great offensively, had the size, the speed, the skill, the tenacity. And, the guy would just barrel over you, no questions asked, do whatever it took, and was hard to play against every single night. So, of course, just no questions. He was just an easy number one for me as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. My number one was also an easy number one for me. I had him. He's the first person on my list, and everyone else came after that. And I tried to knock him down, but it just didn't happen. My number one has 3 cups, 2 Harts, 2 Rosses, 3 Pearsons, 8-time All-Star, 2 Rockets, 2 Conn Smythes, and a Mark Messier trophy, since no one cares about that trophy. That is Sidney Crosby, the NHL's greatest grinder of all time. I don't think that there is any player better than getting to the net and being in that, I remember, Red Wings fans just, especially, definitely 10 years ago, 15 years ago, hated the guy, hated his guts. And I remember people telling me, the guy's just so lucky, the puck just, bounces out to him, or, it just, no. He, his entire career, just knows how to play in and around the net. Create a 15-foot circle. I know you can't go 15 feet behind the net, but I guess an oval around the net. And in my opinion, there's been no player ever that has been better than Sidney Crosby in and around the net, deflecting the puck, getting loose pucks, cycling the puck. He has just been so effective. And it definitely is not that player who's putting up a bunch of penalty minutes, or that type of pure, I'm going to go body check you kind of grinder. He does all the things grind wise to create offense, and he has been the most successful at it in comparison to any player in the history of the league, especially in the time that he plays. The points he's put up in the era that he's played in, where goal scoring has come at a premium, he has been the best player for a very long time. I think you can, even just, you can drop in Connor McDavid. Of course, Connor McDavid has become a more effective player than Crosby, but also Crosby's 35 years old now.
He's getting up there.
We're not expecting Crosby to be the best player in the league anymore. But man, he just continues to do his thing, and he's been so consistent over his career. And I know he had those injuries those few years, but just for my money, the greatest grinder of all time.
Okay. It's funny. I actually was on a Reddit forum, and they were debating about, top grinders all time. And somebody mentioned Sidney Crosby's name, right? And you think about it and then the debate actually started, not necessarily about whether Crosby deserves to be on that list. The debate actually started to form into, well, what's the definition of a grinder, right? Yeah, and some guys were like, yeah, we'll only go into those hard areas. Well, yes, Sidney Crosby checks that box, right? and of course you can always go back to, the 90s and you can say, well, Grinders just typically just a defensive forward. Well, Crosby does that very well now.
Right.
And he steals the puck, right? I mean, he's always, a great face-off guy. He's always he plays with a lot of tenacity and just always seems to have that motor going, which is what Grinders typically do. So I don't hate it. I don't, again, if I had to classify it, and that's where it gets into some gray area, right? Because if you want to just classify as what type of player that is, I would probably put Crosby as a playmaker just because of that high IQ. But if you think about what a grinder is, he could still fall in that category. So I don't hate the decision because he checks off a lot of those boxes for sure.
Thanks for validating me.
But I don't have him on my list, so that's about as much validation as you get.
That's fine. That's fine. We had some very different lists, but that's what makes it fun. Well, there's our top 10 grinders of all time. Let us know what you think. Who's your top grinder of all time? You can hit us on OT Hockey Talk on Twitter. And next show we'll be doing probably another top 10 list. As we, we'll probably do another week of a top 10 list, and then we'll start getting into the nitty gritty as we approach training camp and start to talk about
we're almost there.
Yes, talk about some combinations of lines and new players being places. Now that we've had some time to let the dust settle. I know there are still names out there to still be signed. Phil Kessel's still available. We still have some work to do. We'll see where those guys end up. But until then, Justin, you have a great rest of your week. And to
you
our
too, Mark.
Thanks. And to our listeners, we hope that you have a pretty mediocre week. Not as good as Justin's because he just got back from Hawaii. So if you compare, unless you're listening to this from Hawaii, then you beat us both. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.